Chaplain Lindsey Williams has been an ordained Baptist minister for 28 years. While working on the Trans-Alaska oil pipeline, he spent 3 years working and rubbed shoulders with some of the world's elite oil executives. He lived with them and attended their board meetings. He wrote about his experiences in an eye-opening book, The Energy Non-Crisis, and due to the sensitive nature of the book, his life was threatened by an oil executive. He was actually forced to shut down his website and stop selling his books and CDs. In January 2010, that same oil executive, who is now in poor health, told Chaplain Lindsey, "I'm too old to care. Tell them everything." And since then, he has been doing just that. Lindsey Williams is truly inside with the insiders. His latest presentation on DVD, 2012, The Beginning of the End, contains 3 hours of new information, including divisions among the elite, the fate of the U.S. dollar, and much, much more. He will join us every month to bring us the latest information on globalist strategies and activities. Chaplain Lindsey Williams, welcome back to the Global Freedom Report. How are you?
It is a privilege to be back with you. And Brent, congratulations. I am so glad to hear your voice out here on the airways.
Well, thank you. And I'm so glad to hear you as well. We really need you out there. Considering, this is a question I've wanted to ask you for a while, considering the rapid approach of a global conflagration between the globalists and the people of the world, how do you handle what must be the emotional strain of carrying around information concerning these matters?
I lived with these people for 3 years, and for 35 years I've kept in touch with them. Then they retired. They're in their 70s and 80s. I guess I have been so in touch with this for so long, Brent, that whenever I see things taking place, it really doesn't upset me as much as it would maybe the average person. But right now, there is a conflict going on amongst the elite themselves, Brent.
A conflict? Well, that's interesting. That makes that. Tell me, please.
The younger elite, who I didn't know years ago, they are now taking over from the older elite, whom I knew personally and lived with during those years and have kept in touch with all these years. These older elite now, amazingly, they have children. Their children have gone out into the business world. They see what has happened as a result of the precedents that they set years ago. They see the younger elite doing things that they would never have approved of. And believe it or not, there is such a dissension going on amongst the elite themselves today. It is to our advantage. In fact, I oftentimes describe it as a window of opportunity that is so glorious right now because the elite are not moving forward as fast as they had hoped to, and the American dollar is still fairly strong. And as a result, it has given a marvelous opportunity for those who still want to take time to do something about it.
Well, now, when you talk about a division among the elite, I mean, parents and children have fights all the time. They have arguments all the time. Do this, I don't want to do that because I told you, Mom, Dad. Is that what we're talking about here? I mean, or are you saying that this younger generation has a different policy approach trying to rule the world than their forebears?
Well, yes, there is definitely a dissension, and the older ones naturally have children who are out in the world now and got to make a way for themselves, and they look at things at a little different angle than what the older elite did years ago. For instance, what's taking place in Europe right now? They are intentionally, the elite are, intentionally, how should I put it? They are delaying a financial crash of the world's financial system in order to be able to create all of the debt possible in every nation, every city, every country, every county, every state in America. They are intentionally delaying. There is some dissension as to when they should allow things to let go. I'm sure you're right.
Well, my question would be, is it the older ones who are delaying, or is it the younger ones who are delaying?
It seems that the younger ones are, as most young people are, very wanting to get things done and get it over with. The older elite do not. I know this sounds unusual, but, I'm in touch with these people, and they tell me what their thinking is. And the older ones don't want civil unrest. They don't want things like the different groups that we're seeing out there rioting and trying to cause problems. They want to bring in the New World Order according to the pattern that George Herbert W. Bush said years ago when he originally announced the New World Order.
You've been told that the global elite seek to bring the price of oil up to $200 per barrel, and only then to open up the rich Alaska oil reserves. Yet oil remains fairly stagnant, around 115, 120, 130 per barrel. Are we still looking at massive increases in the price of oil as far as you know? And if so, when is that going to happen?
We definitely are looking at massive increases in the price of oil. When it will happen, there again, just as the collapse of the financial system has been delayed because they wanted to create massive debt, likewise, the same thing has happened in relation to oil prices. As you remember, a number of months ago, I contacted my elite friend, and I said, "You're not helping my credibility at all." I said, "You said that the price of crude oil was going to $150 a barrel." He just chuckled and said, "Chaplain, I guess you'll just have to put up with it." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "Well, we had to back off a little bit." I said, "Why?" And he went on to tell that so many people are waking up. You go to fill up that SUV and it costs you $100. People begin to take notice as to what's going on. So many people are waking up that he said, we're going to have to back off on the price for a while until people kind of calm down. The last thing that the elite ever want is the masses of people to wake up. There's only a handful of them. There is millions of us out here. And Brett, programs just like yours are waking the people up to the point that it has the elite concerned that too many people are learning the issues, Brett.
Well, and that's thanks to the internet and thanks to the ability, this is technology as a double-edged sword. They could try and use it against us, but we can also use it to defend ourselves. And the spread of information is one way in which that happens. All right, let's move on to this Europe thing. Now, there was recently a statement made by Nick Dewhurst of Integral Assets Management. He's a wealth manager. He said that as of June 18th, the day after the Greek elections, Greece is pulling out. The Eurozone is going to collapse. In the meantime, Reuters has come out and says yields on U.S. and U.K. German benchmark bonds are at a record low. The news from Europe, it continues to prepare the world for Greece to leave, for the euro to collapse. Spain is in shambles. Portugal and Italy are not far behind. Yet, last time we spoke, you said the euro would not be allowed to collapse, at least not yet. So take it away, Lindsey. What's going on with Europe, the euro, and how it affects the economies of the world? What's happening?
Well, last fall, most every newsletter writer that I know was saying, there's going to be a collapse before the end of the year. And I went to my elitist friend and I said, what's the story? He said, no, there's not going to be any financial collapse through December. Well, I went back to him in January, and nearly every newsletter writer was saying, the Ides of March, there positively will be a financial collapse by March. I went back to my friend and I said, what's the story? He said there is not going to be a financial collapse in January, February, March. And, of course, I did the same thing again. And he said none in April, May, and June. And it has happened exactly as they said it, because they are intentionally holding off on the collapse in order to create massive, massive debt so that this world, such as this world has never seen before. As a result, what's happening in Europe should have long since have collapsed the financial system. And as a result, it hasn't. The elite keep buying the bonds of Greece, bailing them out so that when they do finally allow the collapse to take place, they can step in and say Greece, Spain, Italy, United States of America, who has more national debt than all of the major European countries put together, and we think that we're perfectly safe over here. Not at all. The elite will be able to step in when they're ready for the collapse to take place and say, okay, your currency has collapsed. Your country, you're going to have to accept the New World Order. You have no choice. We've got you in a corner. You'll have to do what we say at this point. All of this is being done by design. And you mentioned the bonds. You're correct. On Friday, that's right, just a few days ago, the bond yield in Great Britain was the lowest it has been in 300 years. I hope all of you caught that out there. The bond yield on the Federal Reserve bonds issued in the United States of America on Friday, the same day, was the lowest it had been in 200 years. This literally frightened me. The average person didn't pay much of attention. But to me, it meant everything in the world, Brent.
You're going to have to help me out. I must be the average person. What exactly does that mean? What is the significance? It sounds like a heavy-duty statement, but what's the significance of the bond yield being so low?
When the super wealthy of the world and the wealthy nations of the world can't find any place to put their funds, they go to the most secure spot that there is. And when they buy bonds from Great Britain, which of course Great Britain has been secure much longer than America has been secure. Great Britain is recognized as that's where the Rothschilds are. This is where the powerful money of the world is. And so all of these super wealthy nations and people were fleeing everything. They were fleeing India. India announced massive financial problems. They're fleeing China. There's only one place, or really two places on the face of the earth they can go with their billions and billions of dollars in order to try to find a safe haven. Number one was British bonds. Well, the more people show up to buy bonds, the lower the interest rate goes. Same thing in the United States of America when they showed up at the auctions of the Federal Reserve T-bills. Here's this massive amounts of people all of a sudden out of a clear blue sky showing up for the auction, and the price, the interest rate on yield on those bonds go down and down and down. This says only one thing. The world is desperate to find a place to put their money because there is no such thing as a safe haven. Everyone seems to recognize that something is drastically wrong and that there could be some catastrophic event in the very near future. So the fact that it was the lowest in Great Britain in 300 years scares the daylights out of me because it indicates that there possibly could be that the elite before very long are about to allow to take place what they will eventually allow to take place anyway. Now you also notice that on Friday the price of gold spiked up over $50 in one day. And that meant that the masses of the super wealthy were buying the precious metal again, Brent.
And, I was just going to say, when you're talking about where can we put our money, I would think that if they have no place to put their money, they'll put their money in gold and silver.
And, okay, now this is the prediction. Just mark my words. I did not get this from my elitist friend. Now, he did tell me, by the way, they let me know a long time ago that the price of gold is going to $3,000 an ounce because they're going to back the New World currency. The New World Order currency will be backed by gold and silver. And the price of gold must go to $3,000 an ounce before they can do it. And the price of silver must go to $75 an ounce. Now, from what I've been told in the past and what I am seeing take place right now because of the super wealthy having no place that is a safe haven anymore except these two countries' bonds and maybe the gold, I'm predicting that you very well could see a upward trend of gold that will surprise the world over the next weeks and months until it gets, no telling how high. At $2,000 and $3,000 an ounce wouldn't surprise me at all within a reasonable period of time.
And I would also think, it just, it would seem to me that the other safe haven would be oil stock. Because I would imagine you've told me before that these people, oil is their currency of choice. And so it would seem to me the oil stocks are inevitably going to have to go up.
Well, they're not going to go up until the elite are ready for them to. Now, let me relate a story that happened back in 1984. Oil at that time was $32 a barrel. At that time, Mr. Ken Fromm was still very active with Atlantic Richfield. You know, he died about a year ago. He was 87 years of age. Now, I remember he called me up on the phone that day. It was 1984, and he said, Chaplain, would you like people to think you are a prophet? And I said, Ken, what do you mean? He said, the price of crude oil is going from $32 a barrel to $10 a barrel within the next 60 days. I said, Ken, that can't happen. It would impact the entire world. And he just laughed on the phone. He said, Chaplain, come on, get off of it. He said, you sat in our board meetings. You know good and well that OPEC has nothing to do with the price of a barrel of oil. He said, we control it. He said, OPEC's gotten too big for its britches. He said, we've got to show them who boss is, and we are going to take the price of crude oil from $32 a barrel to $10 a barrel. They actually took it to about $8 or $9 a barrel. They did the same thing again about 3.5 years ago. They took it from $147 a barrel to $50 a barrel, and it was all for the purpose of making OPEC realize, hey, boys, you're getting too big for your britches. We still control the oil world, the elite of the world. Now, right now, the elite have a problem. They think they're God, but they aren't, and they don't always get their way. They thought that they would have already created such massive chaos in the Middle East that they would be able to bring in the American oil fields at $150 a barrel oil. You remember what happened? Egypt, Mubarak, gave in very easily. Libya, it set them back about 2 months. Then it came around to Syria. And oh my goodness, Syria has actually set the elite's program back approximately 4 to 5 months because the elite of Syria just won't give up. And they can't break in with the Muslim Brotherhood. Now, there have been some riots in Saudi Arabia. I told you that Saudi Arabia would be the last place that would have major riots, and it will happen, but it hasn't happened yet. And the elite are approximately 6 to 8 months behind in that plan of putting the Muslim Brotherhood with all of their massive chaos in the Middle East. So as a result, the price of crude oil can't go up yet. So they've tried, but they haven't quite succeeded. Keep in mind, they think they're God. They aren't. They're just mere men trying to play God, Brent.
Well, now let's touch a little bit more on Syria and the Middle East, because of late we've actually stopped hearing a lot about Syria. Yemen has been more in the news of late. There's been nothing out of Saudi Arabia, and I have a correspondent who lives in Jeddah, so I actually get information from inside the kingdom. And inside the kingdom, there's absolutely no rumblings at all. I mean, life is just going on. Everything is quiet. In all honesty, from that perspective, it's almost as if the globalists have abandoned their objectives in the Middle East. Now, we've stopped hearing a lot about Syria, but one thing we do know is Russia has dug in its heels, and it's going to sit there and it's going to stand with Syria. I mean, can they actually make headway in Syria? Can Syria be the block that prevents them from getting any further in the Middle East?
The elite have run into some major problems in the Middle East. You remember that about 1.5 years ago, I came out with a 3-hour DVD series entitled Middle East, the Rest of the Story. And my elitist friend had told me all of their plans for the Middle East and how it would dovetail with the bringing in of the Bakken oil reserve field in North and South Dakota and Montana, and Gull Island in Alaska, where the largest oil rig that's ever been built on the face of the earth is drilling right now, and will probably be brought in within the next year. They must get oil prices up before they bring in those fields in mass. Now, I know the Bakken Reserve is being developed quite rapidly, and it makes me wonder just what they're going to do, because Assad in Syria just isn't giving up as they thought he would. As a result, there's no conflict in Saudi Arabia yet, or very little conflict, if any. They've had a few skirmishes, but nothing major. And, of course, our president and Israel both have backed off on Iran. So right now, the elite are kind of at a stalemate wondering, how do we do what we want to do? Yeah, they do have their problems. I bet earlier in the program I mentioned that there's a conflict amongst the elite themselves, amongst the older and the younger. And this is part of it. One of them want to do it, some things one way, one another, but yet on the other hand, they're not accomplishing what they wanted. So it creates a conflict even for them because of the power that they have, yet sometimes they don't get their way.
We have a question from the chat room for you, Lindsey. Eagle Eye Ski wants to ask, what are successful strategies for the public to fight and defeat the implementation of the highway corridors being built through people's backyards? We have an issue here in New England, and there is much public outcry. Can you tell us anything about that issue?
I'm not quite sure what highway corridors he's speaking of. I don't know of any except the one between Mexico and Canada, and it has had one delay after the other, especially since George Bush was out of office, and Mr. Obama doesn't seem to have the North American Union as much of a priority as Mr. Bush did. I really am afraid I can't answer that question. They have not mentioned that to me at all.
Okay, I think he's referring to these international corridors that are being implemented. The one I know about is the one you just mentioned also, but I believe that there are several of them that they're trying to establish international jurisdiction and things of that sort, so that essentially U.S. jurisdiction disappears in many places. I think that's what's going on. My guest is Chaplain Lindsey Williams, and Lindsey, is 2012 beginning of the end the current DVD? Is that the current one?
No, in fact, Brett, things have developed so rapidly, and there's so much happening out there. Until just a few weeks ago, we had to go back in studio again and have just finished producing a 3.5 hour DVD series. And things are happening so fast out there, it's almost mind-boggling. It's difficult to even keep up with it. We can't produce them fast enough in studio to be able to let people know what's happening. Last week, I did a CD, which we are putting with our 3.5 hour DVD series because of things taking place in the derivative market so rapidly, what happened over in Europe. So our latest presentation is Secrets of the Elite, just out a matter of days ago, with the CD presentation that you can actually listen to in your vehicle as you travel down the road.
If you'd like more information about Lindsey Williams and the work he is doing, www.prophecyclub.com. That's PROPHECY club.com. You can also call toll-free 888-799-6111, 888-799-6111, and ask about his latest, Secrets of the Elite. I want to ask you about China. China has been asked to revalue the yuan, its currency, to help prop up the U.S. dollar. However, China has been reluctant to do so, and its economic influence in world affairs places it in a position where, frankly, it doesn't have to help out the U.S. How do you see China's participation playing out in world economic affairs, at least in the immediate future? Are we going to see currency wars? Is China the only major player if such should happen? And how does the globalist agenda dovetail with the Chinese situation?
Thank you, Brent, for asking about China. I was hoping you would get to that subject today. This is so important. Everyone out in the listening audience, please, if you have a pencil and paper handy, write down a date. On April the 14th of 2012, China did something so catastrophic that the average person had not the slightest idea. Now, it appeared on the national news. I saw it and shuddered in my shoes. The average person didn't even realize what was happening. It was on that April 14th, 2012, that China said, we are going to allow our currency to float against the American dollar between 0.5 and 1%. Oh, when I saw that, I said, currency war. Now, let me go back a ways before I explain the significance of it. I have said many times that, and the elite gave to me, they said, don't pay any attention. In other words, okay, if you want to know when the financial collapse is going to take place, it's inevitable. It will happen. It's just when the elite want it to happen and when they get enough debt created so they want it, they'll bring it about. And they said to me, they said, don't pay any attention to the New York stock market, Wall Street. They said it means nothing. It may go up 300 today, come down 200 tomorrow. The funds protection team controls it. If you wait until the stock market has collapsed, you've lost it. If you stay in your paper, whatever that paper may be, 401ks, IRAs, retirement funds, bank account, Federal Reserve notes between the mattress, I don't care what they are. If it is paper, it's worth the paper it's written on. And if you wait until Wall Street collapses, you've lost your paper. If you wait until the euro collapses, you probably have lost your paper and won't have time to get out. If you wait till oil prices begin to go up. Now, there is something so significant about what China did, because China said, we are going to allow our currency to fluctuate between 0.5 and 1. Do you realize if China allows that currency to go to 1% against the American dollar, every product in Walmart and Target would double. Every product on the shelf, and that's almost everything there, made in China, it would double the price of that product if they allowed it to go to 1%. Basically, what China was doing was they were threatening the United States of America and saying, America, don't you dare bring in a QE3. People, this is so important. Do you realize QE3 is one of the most dangerous things that the Federal Reserve could ever do? Now, the politicians want it because they'll do anything on this election year to try to get things going again. They can't. QE3 is about the only thing they can do. But whenever they do, it's going to be retaliation on the part of nations all over this world who can't prop up their currency like we can with the Federal Reserve by merely pulling paper out of thin air. And China basically was saying, America, we've had enough of you. We've had enough of you propping up your dollar. We are going to allow ours to float. And folks, whenever China wants to, they literally could devastate the economy and the stores of the United States of America, Brent.
Wow. Wow. We have a caller on the line. Kerry is calling in from Louisiana. Kerry, welcome to the show. You're on with Chaplain Lindsey Williams.
Good evening, gentlemen, and I had a question about the Illuminati. I received a 20-page manuscript claiming to be from 4,000 years old or whatever from the Illuminati. They inducted me in. Is Lindsey familiar with this book?
Lindsey?
Yes. Now, let me state emphatically, I lived with these people for 3 years' time. Sat across the dinner table from them, lived in the same dorms with them at Prudhoe Bay, met many of them, and have kept in touch with them these years. There positively is a group of people on the face of the earth who control the world. Now, they would come under numbers of names. They would come under the names of Illuminati. They would come under the names of Bilderbergers. Some of them are at the heads of the Council of Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission. You would find all of them either in the Federal Reserve or the World Bank. And basically, this is a group of people that could be labeled with many of these different labels. At the very top, you will find approximately 12 people only. I'll name two of them that you're very familiar with. George Herbert W. Bush is probably Mr. Illuminati himself. You could not get any higher. But he's in his 80s. Henry Kissinger could definitely, he's at the very top amongst this group, if you could say, at the very top, who knows everything. yet he's in his 80s. You know, I've learned a lot of things, too, from the elite. Why do these men live so long? I found out some of these secrets recently and put it in my new DVD series, Secrets of the Elite. You're going to be amazed at what the elite know that the average person doesn't know that you need to know. But, yes, you're right. This would be one of those groups that you could label as the New World Order Illuminati crowd.
Terry?
Well, he didn't answer my question, so I don't know whether he skirted around it or he didn't hear it. But let me ask it this way.
Maybe you can answer
it this way.
Terry, ask the question again.
Okay, let me ask it this way. How about the Nouveau Tech Society? Is that one of the names that the Illuminati go by?
Lindsey?
I do not recognize that name.
Nouveau Tech.
I do recognize the name Illuminati. I recognize the name Skull and Bones. Many of these people are in one and some in the other. I do not recognize the name of the one that you just mentioned.
All right. So, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for the call. I appreciate it very much. 888-747-1968. 888-747-1968. Lindsey, you talk about currency wars in China. What about trade wars? Do those go hand in hand? If we see one, are we going to see the other?
The thing that you must watch in order to know when the financial collapse is going to take place, pay no attention to Wall Street, pay no attention to the euro. Oh, yes, they will collapse in accordance, but the thing you want to pay attention to is derivatives. If you have never done a crash course on derivatives, you must do it immediately. Here's the order of what's going to happen. There's going to appear a crack in the derivative market. It did. You saw it. Many people didn't know how to recognize it. It was J.P. Morgan. It took place on Friday, May the 11th, 2012, and J.P. Morgan announced a $2 billion loss. The following Friday, they announced a $5 billion loss. 2 weeks later, they announced a $7 billion loss with a $25 billion loss in shares as a result of people being afraid of their loss in the derivative market. There's going to be a crack in the derivative market, which will bring about currency wars. And this was China's reaction on April the 14th of 2012, whenever they said we're going to allow a currency to float to 0.5 to 1, which of course would be 100% increase in the price of a Chinese product. Now, currency wars, when they begin to mature, which they've already started, they just haven't matured yet, are going to bring on trade wars. Notice, please, write down this order, because you've got to know just before the collapse takes place. Crack in the derivative market will bring on currency wars. Currency wars, as they materialize, will bring on trade wars. And there's one last thing that will take place that everybody will know. You can see it, and it's almost too late when it happens. Whenever the Federal Reserve announces an increase in interest rates, it's all over. Now, that is the straw that broke the camel's back. I have been told that anyone who waits that long more than likely is going to lose anything that they have in paper. That will be the final straw whenever the Federal Reserve says we're going to have to raise interest rates. It will be a last-ditch effort when everything else fails. When QE 1, 2, and 3, which are about to come into, fail, when things get to the point in Europe that Spain, Italy, and Greece and others, that the problems develop more, at some point the Federal Reserve will get so desperate that they'll have to say we're going to raise interest rates, and whenever you hear that happen, you better be out of all paper. If it's written on a piece of paper, it's worth the paper it's written on. I'm talking about all paper. If not, you will have lost it by that time, Brent.
We have a question out of the chat room. What can the public do to fight and defeat the elites' Agenda 21?
I have not been able to get them on the subject of Agenda 21. I wish I could. Oftentimes I'll talk with my elite friend and I'll ask questions and he'll just cut me right off. You have to realize the power of these people. And when they don't want to talk to me about certain things, they know I get on the radio. They know I tell these things. And of course sometimes they call my hand. they have not been willing to talk about the subject of Agenda 21.
Well, hopefully you'll keep asking, and at some point maybe they'll let something out. Now, there have been rumors of a possible Illuminati nuclear incident at the coming London Olympics next month. Have you heard anything about such a thing happening? Maybe not a nuclear incident, something. We've heard some have said nuclear, some have said biotechnological. Anything about London?
I would urge every person not to get in any large crowds. Super Bowls, London, it's very precarious. Now, you remember that last year, around, I think it was Labor Day, they said, there's going to be a major event take place in New York or Washington. And I went to my leader's friend and I said, what about this? And he came back and said, Chaplain, that's all just saber rattling. It is not going to happen. I don't pay any attention to it. And I broadcasted all across the nation on every radio show I could get on, and sure enough, it didn't happen. London, I haven't heard anything, pro or con, that they would or that they wouldn't. But I would advise people to stay out of large crowds. It's not worth getting there and taking the chance on, because at some group may try something, even if the elite don't.
Well, I would ask you to make some inquiries, if you would, so that when you come back next month, I'll ask you about this again. What should we expect to see happening over the next 30 days? Real quick, because I want to give out contact info.
Probably nothing over the next 30 days so significant that it would be catastrophic. I would watch very carefully the derivative market so that you can know when it's going to crack, and when it does, you must get out of all paper before it happens, Brent.
All right, and we're going to have an expert on about derivatives sometime in the next few weeks to talk in more detail about that. My guest has been Chaplain Lindsey Williams, Secrets of the Elite. That's the latest from Lindsey Williams. If you'd like more information about his work or to get the DVD, CD, www.prophecyclub.com. That's PROPHECY. Prophecyclub.com. You can also call toll free 888-799-6111. That's 888-799-6111. Lindsey, thank you so much for spending this time with us. I will look forward to speaking with you here next month. We'll get that set up as soon as possible. And please take very good care of yourself, because we need you out there helping us to get this information.
Thank you, Brent. Lord bless, and I say congratulations. I'm so glad to hear your voice.
Thank you so much. Chaplain Lindsey Williams, pastor to the global elite. And it is absolutely a pleasure to have him with us on a regular basis.